Test, test, check 1, 2. You know you need unique New York. You know you need unique New York. Does that sound all right? Ah, that's better. You can always tell something's missing when you get isolated results, like AI that's only right for one of your systems. Get AI that can work across your data and applications. Learn more at IBM.com. The AI built for business. IBM.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Mega is an improvised satire from the staff of a fictional megachurch.
We are here, Lord, we are here, and we're ready to podcast.
Hiya, I'm Hallie Labont, and this is Mega, coming to you from Twin Hills Community Church, where every single week we're giving our mega church a tiny family feel. We love introducing you to members of our church staff and people from our community, and today is no exception. I find it to be a treat and a treasure, and per usual, I'm joined by my co-host. He's the youth pastor for our high school ministry called Climax. Please welcome Gray Haas.
That's the rap, because Christ is no cap, Hallie. How are you?
I was going to say, that's the rap, and I need a nap. It's been a lot going on keeping up the kingdom, ain't it?
What's going on with you?
Oh, I mean, so much. Most of all, I'm blessed and I'm in love with Jesus. But, you know, it's challenging to be a mom in the modern era. I'm not going to lie to you, my friend. And as per usual, I covet your prayers.
What's going on with the mother thing? I know that can be challenging. I mean, sometimes I feel, like I've got several hundred kids as the leader of Climax, but luckily I get to, leave it at church, as they say.
Wow. Well, you're very lucky and you're blessed, my friend. And, God is smiling on you. But, this too shall pass. Someday it'll just be me and my husband, Lance Labont, with an empty nest and nothing to do but, I don't know, devour each other in marital bliss.
That's right.
But I'll tell you what, the striking thing this week was that, one of my daughters came to me and says, you know what, Mom, I think I want to go by a different name.
Oh, which daughter?
Ironically, the one I waited 3 weeks to name while I was in the throes of postpartum depression. So, she got a name in the end and she has to stick with it. We're not doing any of that name change stuff in the house. But then my kids come back to me, my son Day in particular. All of my daughters went to Day and said, Mom won't let us go by an alias or a nickname or another name. So then Day gets back on his bull crap, if you can excuse my French.
I definitely.
And he starts, we were at the table and he starts it off just throwing it in my face. But I said, Day, would you lead us in prayer before we eat? We were having an awesome meal of fish sticks, chicken fingers, and French fries that I made the entire meal on a cookie sheet. And then I threw some Pillsbury, cubes that are already, turned into frozen ones on there and made some cookies. So I made dinner and dessert on a cookie sheet. It was awesome. And I said, Day, will you kick us off, buddy boy, with a word of prayer? And he said, you bet, Mom. And he said, E-show, I just want to come to you tonight and just put my prayer request before you. I said, stop it right now.
E-show?
He's calling Jesus E-show because that's the name.
WTF? And I mean, what the faith?
It's I-S-H-O, E-show. It's Aramaic for Jesus. Evidently, Jesus called himself E-show. His friends called him E-show. Day said, if we have to go by original names and we can't change it or anything like that, if no changes, then guess what? Jesus is E-show. And then he said, and the first 4 books of the New Testament are Mattiyahu, Yohanan, Lukash, and Yohanan. And I said, no, they're Matthew, Mark, Luke and John.
Yeah.
I don't need all that, hacking up and coughing stuff.
I know. It sounds like the names of a bunch of Tix kids that we change anyway.
Exactly. Tix kids, as you all know and love out there in the Twin Hills community, Tick kids are teens in Christ service, and it's Tix season every summer when we get teens from across the globe coming over to do volunteer work and, free labor, frankly, on the church campus all summer. And it's a delight.
So what did you say to this name change nonsense?
Well, I just said no more. And, none of my daughters will let it lie. They keep saying, oh, Esho was born on Christmas morning and Esho died for our sins and stuff. And honestly, Gray, I don't know what to do.
Well, you should tell them that, hey, they had those names maybe in the Old Testament, like your Jehoshaphat's and your Malachi's, but maybe Jesus called them Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John because it was like an update, kind of a riz on those old names. So maybe they did call them Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John once they got into the posse that was the disciples. And I think, you could tell Day, look, Day, your grandparents probably had names like Ethel and Hazel and Hubert and names like that. Now, and I don't like to name names, but just think about the names in Climax. You've got, Gerrymander, you've got Rivian, you've got Wainscoting, and those are names now.
I know. I just met Shiplap Stikovich last week, a brand new kid. She's delightful, by the way.
So, well, that's a bummer. I'm sorry you have to fight a war at home, as they say.
It is such a shame. And I looked it up in my walk through the Bible because, as you know, I walk through the Bible every year where I read the Bible from cover to cover. And it was in there, too. It said that Peter is a big one. He's going to meet us at the pearly gates and whatnot. And his name evidently is Kephas. And James is Yaakov. And I was like, what is this? Dr. Shivago? Even John, the one who Jesus loves.
Yeah.
You think of Jesus looking over at him in a brotherly gaze, in a bromancy kind of way and being like, hey, John. And evidently, old Esho said Yochanan.
No.
For John.
But I mean, isn't that the same thing as like, it's like when people say Deutschland and I'm like, well, we say Germany now.
That's right.
Maybe those were the names, but we say it Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John now. It's not a name change. It's just how we say it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
I mean, everybody says Australia, Yeah. And it's like nobody has like a change on that.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that Mark and Luke are both kind of similar, so I'm holding on to those two guys for dear life. Mark is like Malkos, and Luke is like Lukash. It's close. Yeah. It's like, but I don't take well to it. Like when my kids are walking around being like, it's not Thomas, it's Taom. And stuff, I just feel like they're mocking me.
Right, and the way maybe it's not what the name is, but the way you say it, and kind of the way you say it, Hallie, is also. I mean, you kind of is that how kind of emphasizing it. And
well, I did take an expectorant this morning because I felt phlegmy, so that might be what's causing some of this. Well, just like the Trinity is bouncing around the cosmos, our guest today is bouncing into our Christ-centered hearts. It's my pleasure to introduce Shane Dixon, our resident bouncy house guy. How you doing today, Shane?
Oh, well, I'm blessed, of course. I'm not too stressed.
Oh,
good.
Wonderful.
And I'm not under duress.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Is that because you bounce those things out of your life? Is it a stress reducer and a nervous system regulator to bounce?
Well, I absolutely got into the industry because of stress reducing tendencies that bouncing has. I don't know if you guys know, jumping on a trampoline is supposed to reduce stress and keep you, sort of centered. And I thought, what way to bring our young kids closer to God than to have them bouncing up and down.
Yes.
And I do want to get into, what obviously with this weekend, Hallie, Shane is bringing out some of his best bouncy houses as we're going to have a lot of those out on the lawn this weekend for the Climax teens. But what was causing you so much stress? Was it a job or something you had before you got started inflating, these structures and dragging them around the campus for our members?
Yeah. So I don't know if we've really talked about this. Of course, Gray, we work together very closely, but we don't talk about our personal lives that much.
Yeah, I don't love to talk about personal stuff usually, but
Oh.
Yeah. One thing that I guess I've been keeping close to my heart is that I do only have 9 toes.
You've lost a toe.
and that's what was causing the stress?
I was actually born without the toe. And what that does for your balance, both physically and emotionally, I would say it's pretty tough to be an unbalanced human being like I have been. I just grew up with so much stress, and the way I found that I could alleviate some of that stress is to stand on my bed.
Oh.
Against the wishes of my parents, which of course I do love and respect them, but they would say, please don't jump on the bed. And of course I would jump on the bed. As many jumps as I could get until my poor balance would throw me off. And what I learned was that this was my calling. This is something I needed to spread in the world.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, with every bounce, the more height you catch, the closer you are to heaven. Isn't that right?
That's right. Because we've established that heaven is up. You know, there's a lot of talk within the church about whether heaven could be, right. Some people think heaven could be left as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't
I
that
don't
strange?
think it would be left.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense.
And sometimes I think in Australia, a lot of things are backwards,
That's
but because
right.
our up is down
Uh-huh.
and the toilet's flushed a different way. But so that is interesting. I've always thought of heaven as up, but maybe I should be thinking of it as down if I'm there.
Yeah, and I think relative to the spherical nature of the earth, up might be down for someone else,
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I believe heaven is up, and that's kind of why I inflate these plastic bouncy houses in order to bring children closer to Jesus, of course.
Awesome.
And yeah, I of course want to know what size bouncy houses we're going to be using this weekend because, you have quite a few different models and we want to get into that. I did wonder,
Oh, wait, we're not going to get into that?
Oh, I think we are.
Oh, okay, we are.
But I think, one thing I wonder, and I hope this is not too personal, but did you
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
ever pray to God for the toe to grow back?
Oh.
Or to, I guess, not grow back. It was not there in the first place. Because that's sometimes something that I wonder, is that something that, like Hallie sometimes brings up, with amputees? A lot of times those, we don't really pray for amputees, do we?
Yes, we don't. No.
Right. Yes, we don't. No.
We absolutely don't. And I think for me, what I realized very early on was that this is the way God made me.
I tell my daughters all the time, hey, the Bible says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. God made you like this. If God wanted you to have a belly button ring, guess what? He would have put a hole in your belly button. If he wanted you to have, your septum pierced, he would have put a hole there. You know what I mean? And they said, well, Mom, by that logic, then, God made us all naked. Shouldn't we be walking around naked all day, every day? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to limit your screen time for talking back.
Yeah. I think it's bad. I mean, look, we talk about foreskin as well in that scenario.
That's right.
Is this what God wants me to have? Does God want me to be circumcised? I mean, it's complicated. Of course, I still have my foreskin.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get to the bouncy houses in a second.
We will. But my foreskin is a big inspiration for me because...
Is that right? Why?
The rubbery nature in which it stretches and moves and bounces, if you will, it always has directed me towards what, again, I think is my calling. The first bouncy house I did ever see was when I was driving past, and pardon me for bringing this ungodly topic onto the podcast, but I was driving past a fetish festival.
Oh, my.
Oh, like FedEx?
A fetish, not FedEx. No, that would be fun though if there was a FedEx festival.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you
I mean,
get
I
to
like
mail
FedEx.
all your
I
stuff
love
at the
FedEx.
same. A FedEx, that would be awesome.
Ever since Castaway, I've loved FedEx.
There'd be fun little shorts everywhere, but no, it was a fetish festival, and of course I was driving past and I saw a big inflatable penis sort of shooting itself above the trees, and of course I thought, oh, is this the devil, the gigantic devil, finally escaping from hell, penis first?
Well, because hell is down.
Yes, hell is down. So I did, of course, pull over to see if I could start the good fight, see if I could maybe take a couple swipes at the devil. I found it to be a weird festival that was going on, but I could not take my eye off that big bouncy house. The children inside were having an absolute ball, jumping up and down.
Oh, there were children at the fetish festival.
They were children, yes. It was a sex positive, they said, fetish festival for kids. God wanted me to pull over to see this because, I don't want to say that my foreskin has brought me to my bouncy house profession, but in a way it sort of has. My curiosity, it sort of has, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was a FedEx festival, but and I do want to get over to what you're going to be filling up and inflating this weekend, because you said you've got some new materials that you're going to be pulling out of the pole barn. And also, I think we do want to know, how do you get all that air in there? I mean, what an interesting thing, there's so much air in there.
First of all, I do want to get into the great bouncy houses that we do have prepared, but I do want to talk a second about how I get the air in there. A lot of bouncy house professionals, they use machines, of course, to suck air from the air, if you will, the atmosphere, and push it inside the bouncy house.
Can you do that? So you can suck air from air? I've never really understood that. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of a relocation of air, but there's something unnatural about it. There's something I don't quite love about it. So, of course, what I do is I blow them up myself.
That's awesome. Now, speaking of flatulation, does bouncing often cause a lot of kids to pass gas? Because, in which case it's a good thing it's all outdoors, because, these kids, they're filled with such stink.
Yes. Well, I will say that inside the bouncy house, it's a pretty nasty place in there. Because, of course, the kids they have to remove their shoes when they get in, and they're just nasty little kids.
Oh, yeah, they got plantar warts all over their feet and everything.
There's just nasty things going on. A lot of no sock wearing here at the church, which I don't want to be judgmental of. And often there's a lot of donut puke. So sometimes I do have to let the kids I just let them stay in there, and I just run the hose.
Oh, right.
Just to rinse them off a little bit.
Oh, that's good.
You look, are they farting in there? That is possible for sure. I mean, they're children,
Yeah.
And are there nasty things going on in there? Is there farting, shitting, pissing and stuff? Yes, that is happening. But again, they're children. I don't want to be judgmental of children.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happens in the lazy river. You'll see a log of doo-doo, float by you in the lazy river. And it's because these kids go into the food court here on campus. They load up on the Jesus-shaped donut holes, and then they start bouncing around and barfing.
Yeah, and I did want to just add on, something that we've had to talk about is that our bouncy house is something that's going to put, ideas into the head of teens.
Oh.
Because essentially what you're saying is, here's a giant enclosed bedroom.
Right.
What we've decided, and after, a lot of back and forth, was, we're going to have blue be the guys, red be the ladies. And, when it comes to a bouncy house, you don't make purple. Isn't that right?
There was the incident with, I believe his name was Thomas.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Where Thomas claimed to have a three-way.
Oh, no.
In one of these bouncy houses. But he was claiming that the three-way was with one of the women and Jesus, which, I don't want to be judgmental.
And I was doubting that, Thomas, because I really thought that, that he is one of my teens in climax,
Yep.
and I don't like to, name names, but when it comes to, his name, Thomas Richter Bunt, he, and someone with 3 names, you're always going, why do you always have to be bragging that you've had a 3-way? You haven't.
Right.
Because, what had happened really is he had a 2-way and she got pregnant. And yes, we put it up for adoption, which is great.
Yes, that is great.
I just, sometimes, and that was my concern, basically, is we would have a repeat of, last year's 3-way false alarm that resulted in an adoption.
A 3-peat.
Well, I guess it'd be a 2-peat, but
I find that
well, with the baby, it's 3.
Once you bounce, the decisions you make, those are with you and God at a certain point. And if it is making for someone who was longing to have a child, now have one of those children, I mean, that's a miracle to me.
That is beautiful. I'm really glad for that perspective. It blesses my heart. And you know what? I do have to just compliment you, Shane, because I think some ministries just name themselves, and this feels like one of them. But I think you're the one who named your ministry Jump for Jesus. Is that right?
Yes, Jump for Jesus. Well, it was right there.
Yep, exactly.
It was very, very easy to come up with. I do brag that I have the most cleverly named ministry.
Yeah.
That is great.
A lot of people have other thoughts on that, but I know that to be true.
Are you married?
No, I am not married. Some people say I'm married to my work.
Oh,
Yep.
Who says that?
My ex-wife.
Oh.
I should have known. I mean, to initiate a divorce, it just I feel really to be even involved in a divorce to me feels so ungodly. I will say I bounced about it for I would say 6 or 7 hours after it was told to me, and I found myself bouncing higher and higher away from that sort of doomed marriage.
So did you initiate it or did she?
She did.
Okay.
Oh.
Pretty aggressively.
Okay.
Oh.
She said I was married to my work. She said that I don't know how to love a woman with 9 toes, which I thought was an interesting dig. It just seemed like she was mad and wanted to sort of dig at me a bit.
Oh.
Yeah. And also we never really had sex. I mean, I wasn't interested in consummating our marriage.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So she was upset about that.
And how long were you married for?
It was about 16 years.
Oh.
Oh,
okay. So
wow.
quite a long time.
Well, maybe in the eyes of God or in the eyes of some cultures, who knows? I'm sure it's lots. You weren't even really married if you didn't consummate. So
That's she said that a lot. She said that a lot.
which kind of means you're really not divorced, so you don't have to be sad about it.
That is exactly how I have been taking it. So I was never divorced, but I do still call her my ex-wife because it's hard to say her name.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
It's hard to pronounce it.
It isn't easy to pronounce, I will say, but it is also hard for me to just bring up and say. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Got it.
Jennifer.
Oh, how is it?
Jennifer. I put an L in there. I think it's a normal name for others.
Oh, it's Jennifer, but there's an L somewhere in there?
Jennifer.
I think that's me, maybe. She says that I intentionally mispronounce her name in some sort of condescending way, but I don't think that to be true.
So is her name Jennifer and you added the L or?
Yeah, I think that might be what happened.
I love that idea of bouncing about it.
This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV. Summer of cinema is here, and Pluto TV is exploding with thousands of free movies. Feel the explosive action all summer long with movies like Gladiator, Beverly Hills Cop, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Good Burger, Stealth, Four Brothers, and Star Trek. Bring the action with you and stream for free on all your favorite devices. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never. Stream now at pluto.tv.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
And I think that is something that a lot of people should keep in mind, which is, I say I'll pray about it. And a lot of times when I pray about it, I'm working out. I'll say I'll work out about it. And when I work out, I'm constantly praying. I'm sure that when you're in a bouncy house and you're able to just get into a rhythm of prayer, that is such a great place to not only commune with God, of course, if it's in one of the bouncy houses that has recently been hosed down, and also probably just to literally feel like, hey, I'm not of this world for a minute. I'm above it.
For 1 second as you float in the air, you can almost think you're an angel. And in that sort of angel mindset, which of course I've been giving out those t-shirts.
Yeah, what is the angel mindset? Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Angel mindset, when your feet are not on the ground and you are just moving about God's atmosphere, I think you can gain a little bit of clarity. And when you have angel mindset, you're bouncing around, I think things you tend to believe just have to be true. Because you are communing directly with God. And again, you're further than you may ever be from the devil, unless you're in a plane.
Exactly. Yeah. And if heaven is truly up, I guess.
Yeah, I'm betting on that heaven is up. If anything were to change that, honestly, if I were to find out tomorrow that heaven were in another direction, it might throw me for a big old loop. I gotta say, I think heaven is up, and, I think the devil is down.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, and we are definitely down on the devil, not with the devil, I almost said.
So yes, this weekend we have a big Ronald Reagan bouncy house.
Awesome.
Okay, that is the theme.
Yes, the theme will be Ronald Reagan. And so it's a big Ronald Reagan head, and of course the kids will climb into his mouth, which will be open, and his tongue will be out. And he's doing one of those emoji faces where his tongue is out and one of his eyes are closed.
And where do you find these different designs on the bouncy houses? Because they're always a surprise.
I get them on Etsy.
Okay, so they're kind of bespoke.
There's a few Etsy sellers who they do great work. And this one I was on a Pinterest board looking at bouncy houses, and I thought, gosh, what is there one that could embody sort of our ideals? And I saw a big old face of Reagan. First of all, I saw a Richard Nixon one, and I thought that would just be fun because people could say I'm not a crook. I'm bouncing inside, not a crook.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I thought could be fun, but I didn't want it to. The Reagan one, as soon as I saw Reagan with his tongue out, I thought, this is the one.
Well, at least now they can bounce around and say, tear down that wall.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually, I guess you don't want to do that when it comes to a bouncy house, isn't that right?
Yeah, you could say bounce off that wall, or Mr. Gorbachev, please inflate that wall, you could say. The kids are going to have fun with it, and I think some of the parents may as well. This is one of those weekends where I often invite the parents to bounce along with their children on the inside.
Oh, I love it.
That's so cool.
Well, and I do think that this reminded me, and I don't know if you've seen it, but you said, you mentioned it earlier. You said the air in there, and it reminds me of a great Australian movie that actually had, there was a movie in the United States called The Air Up There.
Oh, yes. Kevin Bacon.
Yes. And that was actually based on an Australian movie called The Air in There, which I think was about a professional bouncy house guy.
Oh, cool.
It was about a professional bouncy house guy, and he goes to Africa, and he's looking for someone to follow in his footsteps as a bouncy house professional. And of course, he finds a long distance runner who has maybe the strongest lungs of anyone.
Oh, right. And they don't, and the fun thing about it, I remember, is, whereas in the air up there, there's basketball, and everybody in Africa was playing basketball. In Africa, they didn't have in the air in there, they had no bouncy houses.
There was no context for bouncy house.
No context.
There's at least 45 minutes to an hour where, they're trying to explain what a bouncy house is. They bring one in, they blow it up. They kind of, what exactly is this? It just feels so unnatural.
Right.
But it's a great film.
A great, really great movie. Yeah, and they just kind of have to go on instinct after a while because a lot of the tribes are going, we don't want that here. And
yeah, what is this? We don't like this. We don't like this big thing. And yeah.
Yeah, I love the air in there. I have to show that. That's such a positive movie, wasn't it?
It's really good. It's a positive film. And so, yeah, last month, I feel like when I brought in the Thanos bouncy house, of course, from the Avengers films, a lot of the kids like those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the parents had some problems with the look of the bouncy house. Big purple head. It's not necessarily what people... I wanted to bring something that was a little bit more grounding, something from our world,
Yeah, what is the whole thing with Thanos? Because I don't understand why people get so upset by him.
I think it's, generally he's a big bad guy. He tries to snap his fingers and get rid of half of all life on Earth. But I found that to be quite godly. I found that Thanos was maybe even... look, when the rapture happens, it will feel a lot like a Thanos situation.
Oh,
yeah.
That is why I thought, this could be an interesting mind experiment for our kids. What would they think about if Thanos were to snap their fingers and half of them were sucked into Thanos' universe, which is inside the bouncy house? So I thought maybe the kids weren't quite ready for that. Maybe a lot of them hadn't seen the Avengers films, of course. So I don't know. It's hit or miss. I've got a big garage of these things, and if people don't like the Reagan this week, next week I can come with something else.
Oh, anything that you can tease us with for the next bouncy house?
Yeah, next week I was thinking, okay, so I'm of course a big fan of cuisine, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to jump around in a big beef Wellington?
Oh, sounds so good.
They're so good. Just the mushrooms on the inside of the pastry there. And of course, the meat on the inside. It's very fun for me. And of course, it is a beef Wellington that does look like it's been cut, so you can kind of see the layers on the inside.
It's just so great.
So I may try that next week. I've talked to our kitchen staff, and I don't want them to feel like this is some sort of infringing on their territory. But, I might bring in a beef Wellington next week.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Love it.
Now, forgive me if this is too personal a question, but what's the sandwich that has that au jus sauce on the side? Is that a Wellington?
I think you might be talking about a French dip.
Okay, because I think it would be cool to have a French dip bouncy house, put it right next to the retention pond, and we can act like that's the au jus.
That is a fantastic idea. That's interesting. So I should find a French dip bouncy house and then blow it up next. So here's the only problem. The water and the bouncy house, having those things near each other. If some of the kids think, I'm going to dip in the au jus and then I'm going to jump into the sandwich, we could have a real problem in there. Because, of course, we haven't talked about this, but there's been many a broken leg.
Yeah.
Many injuries happen inside the bouncy house. Of course, I see that as God's will, of course.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I just have never understood why there's so many, what Jews have to do with French dips.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm not sure it's particularly Jew, as in like Jewish sauce.
Oh, okay.
But that is a great question. I don't know. I don't know much about the French. But I do love a French dip. It's a very nice sandwich.
I'm just a fan of sandwiches in general. It's the perfect food. And also, I just wanted to say, Shane, that, when you said Thanos wants to snap his finger and kill half of humanity, you know what? That sounds biblical to me because, that's what God did. Well, even more so. God snapped his hand, flooded the earth, and only saved one family.
Yes. So I actually think Thanos is more merciful if you were to think about it. But at the same time, I don't want the kids to think about just one family surviving. That might be too much for them. I'll leave that to their teachers in class. But me, I may try to remind them with some pop culture. Hey, Thanos is a little godly. What do you think about that? Would you be scared? Would you not? So I think the Thanos being purple is really what freaked out a lot of the families.
Yeah.
Hey, the Supercast numbers are creeping up. We're at 375 supporters. We're trying to get to 1,000, but in the meantime, we're trying to get to 420 so that we can do a high stream just for Supercast folks. So head on over there to mega.supercast.com, ad-free listening, and so much more. It really is keeping us afloat in the best way to support Mega.
And a very special thanks to Shaun Diston, who played Shane Dixon, bouncy house guy extraordinaire. Check out his great podcast, Scott Hasn't Seen, that he does with Scott Aukerman, and follow Shaun at Shaun Diston.
That's right. And of course, a very special thanks to our founding members. That's Bobby and Betty.
And Nana and T-Pop.
And Anonymous. You know who you are.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. See ya.